Everybody get comfortable, and since we're going to be visualizing, it's best to close your eyes. Close your eyes and take a couple of slow, deep breaths. Inhale, hold it for a second or two when you inhale, and then slowly exhale. Take about 3 breaths like that. They just help your system to calm down and shift focuses a little bit inside of your consciousness. Inhale, hold. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Now we're going to imagine on the inner screen. The inner screen is a space right between your eyes on the inside of your forehead. It's a place where your 6th chakra will open once it's time for it to open. It's a place where you can create mental imagery. It will direct energy. It will direct sound frequency from the dimension above by using symbols made of light here. The first thing I would like you to imagine on your inner screen is picturing a long, thin line of energy running straight through your body, starting way up in the universe someplace. About 3.5 feet above your head, that line connects to your 14th chakra. And then it drops a line right through your body, through the center of your body, all the way out through a point below the bottom of your feet, down into the earth, and then back up around. It makes a circle of energy between you, the earth, and the cosmos. Become aware of that line of energy. Even if you can't yet feel it, know it's there, and try to visualize it. Now, I would like you to draw your attention to what we've called the Turban. The Turban, if you will remember, is the little ball of energy that exists right below the navel. It's the center of gravity for the body. And picture it as a little golden ball of light. Once you have a visualization of the little golden ball of light right below your navel, imagine that with your breath, you're going to exhale and go down into the 13th chakra at the center of the earth. And you're going to inhale and pull energy up from the center of the earth into the turban, into the little golden ball. You do this 3 or 4 times. Inhale normally, and exhale down into the 13th chakra at the center of the earth. When your lungs are fully empty, stay there for a second. And let the energy from the center of the earth move into your consciousness partly. Inhale and bring that energy back up in to the turban. After doing this several times, you'll find that the turban begins to glow red as the frequencies and the particles from the earth core become activated within the turban. This is grounding your energies within the earth field. The second thing I will have you do is to remember the Brahman. The Brahman is the place that we call the inner sanctum. It is located around the area of the thymus gland, between the 4th and 5th chakras. Picture it as a little star of light that's right on that line of energy that's running down through the middle of your body. The line runs right through the brain. Take your consciousness as a small point of light. Try to imagine condensing yourself up. Make a little image of your body. Make it tiny, tiny, and tinier until it becomes a tiny little point of light. And then move that little point of light into the center of the star within the body that is the Brahman. From this space in consciousness, breathe several times. Inhale, slowly. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Can do this. I can actually exhale and inhale and exhale about 7 times, but for time's sake this evening we're not going to take it through to that level. If I make some tapes of this and you get them to you, we'll be able to do that at home. Next thing, after you are centered within the Brahman, I want you to feel an energy field around the outside of your body. Feel yourself as if you were inside of the Brahman, inside of a bubble or star of light. The more you work with this visualization, the more you will get the sense of the reality of that space. You will begin to feel it physically around you. Once you get to the point where you do feel the physicality of this energy field around you, you are in this place called where you are centered. It's called being centered in the Brahman. You are centered in the seat of your soul. From this place, you can link with higher levels of your identity. Having your consciousness within the Brahman, I'd like you to now move that you and your energy ball, the Brahman around you. You're going to move it down the line of energy. You're going to move it down to the arm, which is just above the navel. Imagine the arm as a star of light, just as the Brahman was, but it's bigger and brighter. You're going to move the star of the Brahman down a line of energy inside of you and merge it with the arm. You've now connected the core of your soul to the core of your oversoul. From this space, breathe several times. If trying this at home, we suggest 7 breaths, inhales and exhales, for each step. We are now centered within the arm and within the Brahman. We are a point of light and consciousness, centered within the field of 2 stars that surround us. From this point, we are going to move ourselves as the Brahman and Om into the turban and move it down a bit into the energy center that is just below the navel, the part that connects you to the earth. When you feel the energies of the turban and the Om merging, take several deep, slow breaths now. You are combining the higher dimensional aspects of yourself with your soul and your oversoul, with the physical aspects of yourself, and you are grounding within the physical reality. You are building heart courage to do this. You are bringing more and more energy and particle units into your particle grid. The more times this exercise is practiced, the more energy you will bring in. Once you have centered your energy and your awareness within this spot called the turban, then move your energy with an inhale up the main energy line, up through your crown chakra to about 6 inches above your head, where there is another chakra That is your 10th chakra. You're moving energy from the turban up into the 10th chakra. And then on the exhale, pushing it outward to open that chakra center. You could picture it, the 10th chakra is a little ball of light. And when you add the energy of the turban to it, it expands and becomes a circle of light with space in the middle, like a ring of light. It is now opened. We would have you breathe several times, bringing energy up from the turban, up into the 10th chakra, expanding it with the exhale. After several times of expansion of the 10th chakra, we would have you pull energy from the turban up to about 18 inches above your head into the 11th chakra. Pull the energy up on the inhale and expand it outward on the exhale. Just as you did with the 10th chakra, you'll bring the energy from the turban up into the little ball of the 11th chakra and push outward and expand it into a ring of light. You've now opened the 11th chakra. And now finally, we will take the energy from the turban and bring it up through the 10th chakra, up through the 11th, and into the 14th chakra, where it's about 3.5 feet above your head. Picture it as a bluish-purple ball of light. You'll bring the energy from the turban on the inhale up into the 14th chakra, and exhale out to expand it, creating a ring of bluish-purple around you. You have opened your energy field to the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th systems by simply opening those higher chakras. Now you'll ground the energy by reversing this process. As those are open in circles of light now, moving above your head, way out into the universe, you will take the energy and your consciousness back in the turban, and you will move it downward. You will move it down through your base chakra, down through your legs, and through the soles of your feet where you have 2 chakras. At a point about 6 inches below your feet is the 12th chakra. It is the point where the energy current running down both legs and out your feet meets. You will bring the energy from the turban down the legs, down into the 12th chakra. This time you will do it on the exhale. You will breathe in and push the energy down your legs and down into the 12th chakra. Once you are centered with your consciousness in the 12th chakra, you will breathe in, hold for a moment, and then exhale outward while your consciousness is still there and expand the 12th chakra. This will open the energy field of the earth into the energy fields of your body. You will now do the same. Take the energy from the turban, move it down through your legs, through the 12th chakra, into the center of the earth. Visualize the center of the earth. From there, you will again breathe in, push outward and expand, and open and increase the flow of energy from the earth core into your energetic system. You breathe out again and center your consciousness within the turban. There will be one more chakra that you would like to link into the system. You will breathe in and then breathe outward in a quick exhale, going down through the legs, through the 12th chakra, through the 13th chakra, and out this earth, out through the center of the earth, out the other side, and way out into the galaxy. Imagine yourself out in the galaxy and you find a circle of light. You won't see it there hanging, but it is there. It is an energy field. It's the energy field of the 15th chakra. It connects to the energy field of the 14th chakra, which is above your head. Once you've brought your awareness through the Turban, down through the earth core, and into the 15th chakra, and back up into the universe, you have linked the unified field of the universe with that of your entire particle grid. You have brought the higher dimensional levels of identity into association with your body, where your body is preparing itself to integrate into its Keelan crystal body the Keelan codes of those higher dimensional frequencies. If you work with this meditation in a more quiet environment, doing about 7 inhales and exhales for each step, you will find many pleasant sensations, but you will also find an increase in energy coming through your system. It will help you to learn the next steps of how to learn to astral project through the energy centers in your body. You can project from any level. It will help you to do that. But the first step is learning this breathing. It may seem arduous to practice the breath, but it will teach you how to run energy through your system, how to activate your chakra centers, and how to begin accessing the levels of awareness where information on the crystal body and the particle and all that will make sense to you, and you'll be able to get your own intuitive sense of what to do next. So I will attempt to put this meditation on tape in a much more formal, pleasant way that you can use it as a journey. But that's just a run through on what that journey will be. Once you get into the 15th chakra, there's another level you can go to. Once you find your awareness there, breathe in and push yourself out into the universe, into the stars. And I found I could astral project sometimes very quickly using that one, where you go through the 15 chakras to expand. So there are some wonderful experiences you can have by using meditations, guided meditations such as this. Sometimes you fall asleep during them. The best way to do them, the best way to do them is to get a tape, a cassette tape, an audio tape. And even if you see one someplace in meditation, you read it onto the tape for yourself, and then play the tape so you're not distracted by trying to remember it. And take yourself on guided meditations that help you activate chakras. There's a lot of people that have meditations out there. Start using them because they do affect your chakras and your crystal body, and they increase the particle in your grid. So meditations are just some fluffy thing to do with your head. They directly affect every aspect of your energy field in your body. So I'll try to have that one ready for you, so we can focus more on those specific energy centers. And I think that's all I would like to talk about for tonight. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer questions.
Beautiful information.
Myself for the one person who doesn't know me. My name is Anna Hayes, and I'm a local representative of a group called the Guardian Alliance, and they are part of a larger group called the Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds. The individuals I have been involved with since childhood are of an extraterrestrial nature. They have biologies similar to ours, but not in human form. They are physical. They are not just entities or in that vein of reality. The Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds has members that are in biology, such as humans or extraterrestrial races. They also have what are called metaterrestrial members, which are beings who have evolved beyond the stages of development where matter, physical matter, and biology is characteristic to that level of evolution. They are part of the dimensions of 9 through 15. They're pure conscious energies, and they are basically the ones who run the Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds. So the level of information brought through anyone who is communicating with these levels of identities will include information about the physical, but will also include information about worlds that we, as a general rule, don't yet know exist. And I just wanted to qualify where I'm coming from a little bit for the new members in the group, so you have an idea of where the information is being drawn from. In the last class that I gave, we addressed the issues of something called the crystal body, and it's part of the science of Kilanta. which I dealt with more heavily in first class. To sum that up very quickly, Quilanta is the science of light, sound, the subconscious symbol codes, and the base codes of matter. The subconscious symbol codes represent light symbol codes that affect the way energy moves through our biological structure and through the energy structures that are the foundations of that biological structure. The base codes of matter are called kilons. They are formed by minute units called particuli. And it is, in order to understand these aspects better, you really need to see the first class, because I'm going to pick up from there and go on to a little bit more of the theory involved with Quilantic science. The first aspect of things that I would like to talk about involves something called the 15-dimensional matrix. It's part of the structure of reality that we are all walking around in. And in the second part of my discussion, I will get into that. What I would like to do first, as I've discussed with several members of the group, they would like to ask some questions on various subjects, and I will answer the questions first, to the best of my knowledge anyway. You may hit me with some that even I have to go back and ask what the answers are. But we'll start with some questions and answers, and that may help the new members of the group get a little idea of what Quilanta was about just by the answers to those questions. And then after that, I would like to go into the 15-dimensional matrix and how that applies to the human bioenergetic field and chakra system. And then to get into a little bit of what the process of evolution is as far as our biologies and our consciousness. And in order to understand that process, it's very necessary to understand the 15-dimensional matrix, because it's the framework that that process takes place within. So I'll begin with an open forum on questions, and a little while later we'll get into the 15-dimensional matrix.
I have a question.
Yes, Tom?
In your book, you say that to the extent that we're evolving, and there are steps to that evolution, and we're dealing with the dreaming reality, the astral projection, and the mental bilocation. Can you expand on that a little bit? And maybe, not now, but maybe in future classes we could start to get technique for doing this stuff?
Yes, we will get into technique. In fact, tonight, at the end of the discussion, I would like to get into some energy sensing techniques and also some basic techniques to help open yourself to channel your higher levels of identity. Okay, now with your question, you were asking specifically for what? Can you be a little bit more specific on the areas?
Well, we're talking about dreaming reality, okay? And I know that there are times when I'll go to sleep and I'll tell myself, I'm going to remember these dreams, okay, whatever they are. And I'll wake up unconscious, not remembering anything.
Right.
But I did remember one dream last week. I even forgot what the dream was. But I actually was able to remember the whole thing. It was the first time in a long time that I actually remembered that. I was like, hey, that's cool. Because for decades, I remember when I was a kid, I used to remember a lot of dreams. I had some scary ones when I was a kid. But recently, I think it was last week, I had this one dream, and it wasn't any big deal. But it was something that I actually remembered, so that was a breakthrough for me.
So you're looking for a way to improve your recall of what takes place in the dream state?
Basically.
Okay, I think the first part in understanding how to do that is understanding a little bit about what the dream state really is. All right, there are different levels to the dream state. Certain levels, we are processing information from this reality system. Bits and pieces of information, frustrations, we're working them out there, so we don't have to work them out here in physical terms. There's an area between that level and the next level of dreaming that's kind of a place of complete unconsciousness. You're just not aware of being aware. And then after you pass through that state of unawareness, there is a greater reality field. That state of unawareness takes place in what's called a polarization zone that occurs between the three-dimensional frequency bands and the fourth-dimensional frequency bands. It's a level of polarization between your mental awareness in D3 and your astral awareness. And part of dream recall is learning to keep yourself awake and focused to go through that area of unconsciousness and into the fourth-dimensional experiences. So there are a number of techniques, and some of them I'll cover toward the end of this class, as long as we have time.
Great.
But it's important to understand that there are different levels to dream reality. Some people and many scientists believe that dreams are just a product of us processing the data from our daily experience. That is true on one level, but after that level, there are other levels of dreaming. When your consciousness goes to sleep here, it first passes out of its focus within the three-dimensional bands that we're in right here. We are focused, our mental awareness is focused in the three-dimensional frequency bands. There are 15 dimensions, so there's a lot more reality to perceive things in. When we go to sleep, we first shift our awareness, our mental awareness, or mental body, if you want to call it, shifts into a little bit higher frequency zone. Then it shifts into that unconscious zone. Then it shifts and it speeds up. The particles that your consciousness are made out of, the particle units, actually start speeding up. And they go into the fourth dimension. And you begin to have astral experience. Some people can do this at will. They have trained their consciousness to the point where they can make that link and go right through that unconscious area and be awake in both places. This is something we're evolving toward. But every night, when each of us goes to sleep, even if we have no memory of what took place, our consciousness moves all the way up through the dimensional scale to the 8th level. At minimum, it goes into the 8th level of awareness. That, we'll get into in the 15-dimensional matrix, is called the galactic core, the metagalactic core, actually. It's also the core of what could be called our oversoul, and the Guardians call that the Tura. So our consciousness travels every night, every time we go to sleep. The reason we have to sleep is because our genetic codes in our bodies cannot yet hold that much frequency, because frequency and energy is information. And in order to process information through your body has to be able to handle higher current. Okay, right now our bodies tend to be able to handle only the frequencies of the 3rd dimension. So we have to go to sleep to have the rest of our experiences. And when we are dreaming, we will have experiences from the astral planes in D4. We will have experiences from the higher planes in D5. We will have them in D6. And many of us can train our consciousness to go all the way up past D7 through D8 into the pure consciousness states, which you won't even get symbolic translation. You won't get dream imagery on that. You just get cognition. And it can't even be put into words. It's just a knowing. So these are the journeys that we go on a nightly basis. Our process isn't so much learning how to do the process, because our consciousness knows how to do it anyway. It's reminding ourselves to stay awake during the process. And as we remind ourselves to stay awake, we are literally training the energy systems of our body to affect our DNA in ways that it stimulates our neurological structure to grow new nerve endings, more nerve endings that will allow more data to process and translate into 3-dimensional perception. So we become more and more conscious of the higher dimensional experiences that we are having as we evolve the genetic code. And we evolve the genetic code by making an effort with our conscious mind and directing it, learning. We need to learn that our thoughts and where we focus them controls energy in our body, and it controls what our consciousness will do. Once we can learn that much, we can learn what are the steps, to dream reality. Okay, once I get past the unconsciousness, what's on the other side of that? We'll learn those things. So does that answer some of the question about the dream?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to have my glasses on there. I can't say. Hold on. I have 3. I'll try this one here. How do we heal the 12, or the cellular memory of the 144 incarnates that we are?
Okay. How do we heal it?
Well, through cellular memory, yes. In other words, for us to really be able to activate anything, or even translate out of here, we have to heal the cellular memory of at least the 12 incarnates, but also the 144. Now, is that process very similar to some of the beginning of the process of what you taught us last week? Activating all the chakras?
Yeah.
Opening up the, as we talked about, seals?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is part of the process, but All right. I think what you're saying with healing the cellular memory is in the other members of our incarnational family, the areas where they have what we would call karma, or where they made choices that weren't in harmony with the soul's purposes, and therefore fragmented them into probable selves rather than uniting them into the whole identity. How do we heal that within our own blueprint? Because it's carried as cellular memory within us.
Right.
Okay. The Keylontic meditations and all of those things are geared toward helping with that process. The more Partakai units we bring in to our bodies through the energy, through activating the chakra centers, the more those patterns are transmuted, even without us knowing what the patterns are. And that's what's nice about Keylonta. There are many therapies out there, New Age therapies, where you have to go through and rehash the incarnational stuff. You have to release the emotional pattern out of the emotional body, and you have to literally walk through it. And this can be very, very time consuming, not to mention unpleasant. There are ways to create the same results, shifting those patterns back into their proper, where they should have been in the first place, where the choices were made in the right way that didn't create a lower vibrational karma. And you do it by using the energy exercises. When you activate the higher chakras, what you are doing is creating a reaction in the lower chakras. You're transmuting the lower vibrating particum units that your body is composed of in the lower aspects of your consciousness. You're pulling in the morphogenetic field from the higher dimensions, which transmutes the particum into partikai, which are pure consciousness units. That clears the karma. So if you want to look at healing cellular memory, if you want to phrase it that way, it's really the process of bringing light or pure consciousness energy into areas where it is darkness. Darkness would symbolize the lower vibrating, slower moving particum particles. So it can be looked at in a scientific way rather than just in an esoteric way where you have to process all this karma. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to get into the morphogenetic fields and the relationships to the other chakras in this discussion tonight. So that question was should have been asked later probably.
Sorry about that.
No, it was funny. It was interesting that you picked up on my subject matter without even knowing what it was.
What's that word? I can't see. Hold on, unless I got the glasses on.
Reverse mutation?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that not a good idea to go into right this moment?
We can go into it briefly,
okay,
but I would have to give a basic history lesson to go into it fully. Okay, you can ask the question and I'll.
I just wanted to know what reverse mutation in what you want to. Just give me a briefing, just a little tiny bit, then I'll take it.
Basically, what is reverse mutation,
Yes.
as it was mentioned in the new
Yes.
book, the Keylonta transcript book?
Yes.
Okay, reverse mutation is referring to undoing some genetic damage that was done to us a long, long time ago. Genetic damage that was passed on for generations and generations. This was done probably over 200,000 years ago.
Okay.
And it has carried on in our line for that amount of time. There were certain, here's where the history comes in, because this goes back to where our species really came from and who was involved with us at that time. So I'm not going to go into that because that's going to be an hour-long discussion. But the reverse mutation is basically learning to activate certain of the chakras within our bioenergetic system in order to allow the higher dimensional energies to come back through, that because of the mutation that occurred all these 200,000 years ago, we're not allowed to come through our bodies. We became much more dense in physical matter terms than we were intended to be originally because of this reverse mutation. The mutation can be looked at in terms of Keylon codes. If you have a group of Keylon codes here that represent the lower dimensional ones that we're in, and a group of them up here that represent the higher ones, there's some Keylon codes in between that would connect both sections. And these Keylon codes set the basis for our DNA. All right, our DNA manifests by what pattern is set by our Keylon codes. So if you take out that linking code in the Keylon codes, it also unplugs pieces of DNA where certain parts of the DNA cannot interact with each other the way they were intended to bring in the higher frequency, to bring in the higher awareness.
So in other words, it's the same principle as plugging in the junk DNA.
Kind of, but the mutation, part of the mutation is the fact that the DNA was literally disassembled. It was broken down in pieces left in the cells, but not assembled at all. There are also other portions of that mutation where the particular codes were left in the DNA strands, but the key plugs that would allow those codes to plug into the operating DNA strand were omitted and thrown into the junk DNA. So we're basically trying to reassemble those plugs, those couple of codes that will link different parts of our DNA units in a way that energy works in a certain way that allows us to bring in our higher dimensional identity. This was taken away from us a long time ago through extraterrestrial manipulation. And it was done for various reasons. And the reverse mutation is the process of undoing that by putting back the key codes that will allow our DNA to function as it was normally, intended to function.
Basically, then, the procedure down the road is the same by activating the chakras in the same proper way. I understand.
Yeah, the processes are all the same.
Yeah.
Whether you have, a huge amount of scientific data behind it or not, when you start playing with chakras, you are affecting chelons and chelon codes and particae. When you play with chelons, you are affecting chakras. And when you play with either of them, you are totally affecting your consciousness and its relationship to the 15-dimensional matrix. And you have the power, once you understand some of these things, to speed up your evolution or to stop it and reverse it if you want to, which a lot of people do without meaning to. So they all go together. When you play with one, you're affecting the other, and all of them are a part of affecting consciousness and your experience of reality, whether you're here or in the higher dimensional levels. Does that answer that question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else have questions, or do you have another one, did you say?
Go ahead, Tom.
How does one find out where one belongs or is placed on the soul family clock that we talked about?
Okay. That gets into very, very personal soul family relationships. What I have been taught to teach other people in relation to answering that question. Now, you can go to someone who has the ability to see those things, or who is in communication with a metaterrestrial who knows those things. But the most important thing to do, they can give you a tip on, like, I think it's this or that. The most important is to find it in yourself. And the way you do that is to learn to open, to channel the information that's being sent to you from your higher aspects of identity. You have a soul that's focused in the 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension. That's your soul body. That contains a vast amount of information about you, your incarnational family, what, where you are on the soul wheel, what the next stage is for you evolutionary-wise, whether you need to incarnate again or whether you can ascend this time. These are all things that information is held right in your soul. And as you work to open your chakras and your mental awareness into communication with the energies that are coming from your soul matrix, you'll learn these things for yourself. Your own soul will tell you. And that's the most important thing. That's what I'd like to do at the end of tonight. I want to do some energy sensing exercises, kind of play.
Sure.
Because that's where you start to learn to feel energies, and once you learn that, you can learn a few little techniques as far as trying to contact your soul. And because you learned how to feel, to sense, you will know when you've made a connection, and you will begin to learn the process of translating data. And some people it happens very quickly, some people it takes quite a bit of time. But it starts with energy sensing. So, there are some people who can give you accurate soul level readings, where, what is my entity's name, what is my soul family, and, what number am I within the soul family. You can get that information, but it's still not going to have a lot of meaning to you personally until you get it through directly aligning with it. Then you'll not only get the statistics on where am I in relation to the rest, you'll get a cognition that goes with it, a cognition that you can't even be put into words, but it orients you in a way that you're no longer the same. You know yourself as a member of a group that's very, very intimate, an intimate group, and your identity expands because of it. You begin to realize you're plural instead of singular. So, learning to channel your higher self, if you want to call it that, is very, very important if you want to become responsible and able to be responsible for your evolution of consciousness process. If you have questions that you want answered, you can look out here for 1,000,000 years, but you're not going to find them until you find those answers through your own identity first. So tapping into the soul matrix is the first way, to find out those very personal statistical analysis. I mean, I can do readings, okay, and sometimes I do for people, but I don't really like to, because it's so much more meaningful if you find it yourself.
Right.
It's like, being on an Easter egg hunt, and if the grown-up is standing there saying, yeah, there's one, the kid doesn't have any fun finding it. It's not, the experience is lost because of it.
So experientially, it's obviously more powerful.
Yes. When it comes from inside you, it is yours, and you feel, and there's a meaning assigned to it that you will never get by somebody explaining it to you on the outside. And that really goes for any of this data.
Right.
I can explain things, or, even, some psychics can explain things, but when you find it within, at least you have a framework with what they're, teaching us in Kilanta. They're showing you that you are a member of a family tree of consciousness. The fact that you exist implies the fact that there are 11 other physical incarnate beings in different time-space locations that are a part of your family. And there are also, that's one soul. Your soul is not a singular identity. Your incarnate is. Your soul is a plural. It has 12 faces. And the soul is part of a larger identity called the oversoul. And the oversoul is composed of 12 souls, each with their 12 identities. So you're dealing with 144 incarnates in your immediate family, and that's just your immediate, oversoul level family. When you start to connect with that, when that starts to have meaning, rather than just hearing it from the outside, but you start to get this fact, more data becomes available to you, for one, and it becomes a process of, how would I put it, knowing everything in a different context. Because once you realize you are part of a plural, nothing looks the same out here anymore. You begin to understand what the words unified field means and all that kind of thing.
For the people who are new here, who haven't heard how you describe the soul family tree, maybe it would be a nice idea to explain to them that in the 12 incarnates, or the 144, that all of this exists at the same time. Now,
Okay.
and would you like to elaborate
The
on
concept of simultaneous
that?
time.
In other words, you actually plugged me into that, by telling me, about one or two, but which opened a door. Just by knowing that little bit does give you your awareness, vastness. In other words, you could think in a whole different way. So perhaps if they knew that, if they could recognize the 12 incarnates and know that each one of those is existing at this very moment in time, just twisted in another place, that would open their thoughts to think.
You just explained it very well, actually.
Well,
the basic concept you're talking about is what is simultaneous time, and what that means in relation to what some people call reincarnation. All right, simultaneous time is most easily explained by comparing how we look at time here. We look at it as if one moment happens, and then we move on to the next, and the one we just left is gone, and we're moving in a linear direction. That's linear time perception. That's created from our what's called genetic time codes. There's certain Keylon configurations that control our perceptions and allow us to perceive linear time. The true nature of time is more like how we perceive space, as if, well, let's pretend, okay, if time is the United States, picture a map of the United States, all right? We have things happening, all right? We have like a family of consciousness over here in, say, New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Then that's one time area. Over here would be California. That's another time area. They're really there at the same time. And in spatial concepts, that makes sense to us. The time matrix works this way too. Time can be viewed as a carpet of energy. And just like the map of the United States, there is a map to this energy. It's called the time matrix, and it's a literal structure of energy. You will have incarnates, some of them may be over New Jersey, some of them may be in California, and they may be 30,000 years apart if you look at them in concepts of linear time. But they are actually all united, and they are occurring right now, simultaneously, within their own time-space coordinate. So the time-space coordinates that our incarnates live in are concurrent with our own. They're taking place now in their field, just like we're taking place. And what's interesting about this is because our consciousness is tapped into the unified field, and so is theirs. We have the ability to tap into their consciousness, and we have the ability, and they have the ability, to affect each other. We can affect our incarnates, they can affect us, because time is all taking place at once. Does that explain it for you?
Mm-hmm.
Is that good enough?
Yeah, that was very
Okay.
good. I just thought that that was just a really nice thing to know about and think about, so that in the future, when you're reading parts of this book, your mind is opened enough to understand that reincarnation, as we think about it, okay? Most people, and myself included, okay, we think of reincarnation as a person that we used to be, instead of a person that we already are, and that is existing at the very same moment in time, just now, as we are. In other words, any incarnation that you could pick out, she could pick out 1 million of them. She's only picked out 2 for me. But those are happening just as I'm sitting here. We are still they. Just in, maybe we're a future part of them. We could call ourselves future if we measure linear time. But we are just another one of who they are, that are existing right now, not in the past. Now. Mm-hmm. You see, that was a milestone in how to think.
You know what it does for your understanding of identity? When you realize it wasn't the fact that I was this person and I'm going to be that person, mm-hmm. It's I am these people. Mm-hmm. You see the shift there? You go from perceiving yourself as a single individual identity to saying, wow, I got 12 of me running around here, don't I? And it shifts you into the soul level awareness, where you realize that you are a plural. And when it comes to past and future incarnates, past incarnations will be those who have a smaller Keelan code content than you do. They have less Keelan codes built into their Partakai grids. And future ones have more than you do. And as you build Partakai and Keelan codes into your Partakai grids, you are building yourself toward becoming what they are. So it's a different relationship than we're taught, like through many of the religions that teach reincarnation. They were almost done in a symbolic way, because to go into the science of it would have been very difficult at the times those religions were seated. But we're all here all at the same time, and if we get good at it, we can learn to communicate back and forth and teach our other incarnates to communicate with us. We can influence them. We can become their spirit guides to talk to them in their head. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Our thoughts, if we know how to direct them, can go back in time once we find the incarnate, once we start to find the memory in our cellular memory. Once you have your target, you can aim for that target, go back and think some thoughts in her head, and she'll pick them up as her own, and she'll choose whether or not to act on them, because we can't change their free will, and our free will is protected too. But that's where we get a lot of our thoughts or our inspirations from. They're literally future aspects of our own identity that are leading us onward and trying to, help us get to the right spot and avoid, some of the negative things. But it just, Patty was right for bringing that up, because if you haven't been familiar with the material, I throw simultaneous time around like, everybody knows this, just like everybody knows, water is water. And maybe that's not true. I'm just so used to it myself, I don't even perceive time in a linear fashion. So thank you for bringing that up. I hope that helped. Did that help the new people in the group? Did it? Okay.
Once you get to think that way, you continue to think that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, the new information that comes through, you begin to think it and hear it a whole different kind of way than you did 2 years ago or a year ago.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was my questions. That's it.
Okay.
Sometime after I started thinking in terms of parallel lives, I started realizing I have parallel selves alive in the Pleiades, which is why there's so much connection with that. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of experience with channeling in this body here in this time frame. Mm-hmm. And in the course of my contacts with Pleiades, one of the things that started to happen was I started to channel through a Pleiadian in the Pleiades, mm-hmm. which is like a reverse process. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty strange. That was stranger than just channeling in this body.
So you found yourself as the disembodied spirit channeling through a biological Pleiadian form.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if they can do it with us, we can do it with them. But usually people don't get into that yet because we're so used to thinking of ourselves as the physical receivers. But that's, I've heard of that. Is there a question attached to that, or?
No. I just wanted to point out also that many of us who have some connection with UFOs and ETs probably have parallel selves on other planets.
Yeah. Yeah, I do find that to be very true. And it goes back into even our genetic code. Certain humans on the planet have a more of an extraterrestrial genetic code than they do human codes. Humans were originally extraterrestrials. We were created from the genetic code. We were starseeds, and a conglomerate of different ET groups got together off planet. It wasn't even on Earth that this started, and they created the prototype for our species. Now, we've gone through millions of years of evolution on other planets and then here, and through that we've been diluted a bit, and certain groups of humans interacted with Earth species, which created a mutation. Many humans now carry that mutation, and they call it human. This is the human code. Most humans don't realize that they do have some form of ET genes in them, and that usually means you will have ET incarnations as well, because there is a connection between what you carry in your gene code and your incarnational lineage.
I think humans are the mutation.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what we call human today, your basic human code, there really was no such thing.
We're a substandard mutation of what we used to be.
Oh, that's such a terrible way to look at it, though.
Yeah, I know.
I wouldn't call it substandard. I would say genetically challenged.
That's a good
Try to
one.
be politically correct here.
Politically correct. Genetically challenged.
Yeah. We've been
That's a good-
genetically challenged because of some of the manipulations that have been done to us on purpose by other ET groups that didn't want us to evolve, and also because some of the methods we got ourselves into. And there were periods in our history where we interbred with animals from the Earth, and this deteriorated our higher stellar gene code. So there is a lot of things, but we are a bit genetically challenged right now, and that's what we're trying to undo by the process of learning the chakras, learning to activate them, learning to re-stimulate the DNA to grow back into what it once was. So.
Interesting concept. The only book I ever read that really went into that was Ruth Montgomery's book, The World Before,
I never heard that.
about the man mixing with animals of the earth.
Some of the Casey material goes into that.
Well, yeah,
Does it?
Casey and Ruth both did, both talked about it, but Ruth Montgomery wrote a whole book, explaining that process. Very, very interesting book.
There were some really horrendous species that came out of it, too.
Absolutely.
We're one of the better ones.
They were
This
used
human.
used as subhumans almost.
Yeah.
And
They're-
almost
they're-
like not what we would consider a slave, but a subhuman.
Our apes came out of that, some of them.
Mhm.
And not all apes are the same,
Mhm.
okay? There are certain apes that are genetically the same, and then some of them aren't. They don't really know where they fit yet. And some of the supposedly are, like, Cro-Magnon man and all those guys. Not all of them were direct associations with our lineage. Some of them were creations that happened as a result of combining us with an animal species. Many of the apes actually evolved out of us rather than we evolving out of the apes, where we had a stronger gene code to begin with. We were here first. We weren't created from the apes. They were created from us. So where are we going with that? Do we know? I get off on my
Just take
tangents
that.
here.
Mhm.
Yeah. So anybody else that has any questions?
Well, I started to talk to Kathy, right? I want to talk to Kathy a little earlier about the imperative for doing this work, to the extent that we have a time continuum shift in the next century, early next century. And I mean, we want to spend a few minutes just glossing over that so she gets clear that there's an imperative to do this work for survival.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Well, I'm going to try to make this short because this is a lecture all in itself on what's taking place here, because a lot of it's really technical. Basically, what I have been taught by the Guardians in some of my encounters with them is that there are certain things, just as we go through evolutionary cycles as a species, our planet does too. there are time cycles that are involved with the planet's evolution. And at certain points in those time cycles, the planetary grid, which is called a Partakai grid, it's an energy grid that the planet's matter is structured on. In each cycle, it passes through the grid of its double. All right, and this is a natural process, and it's not necessarily a negative thing, as long as the grids are imbalanced with each other, where the vibrational rate of our planet is within a comparable range to that of its double. When they pass through each other, an energetic exchange takes place, and it actually stimulates the planet into its next cycle. So this is a natural thing that we're headed for. All right, that we would do all right with if it weren't for some of the manipulations that have been inflicted upon us by intruder extraterrestrial visitors. They've been here since about 1937. They've been working with the United States and several other governments since about right before the end of World War II. They had something to do with the outcome of that war. Because of the energetic things that they are doing to the grid on the planet, our vibrational rate, the vibrational rate of our planet's grid, is not within an acceptable range to pass through its double without creating changes, like major Earth changes. So that's where you're getting a lot of the predictions, where people are saying, oh, we're going to have floods, we're going to have volcanoes, all this stuff. People are picking up on that probability where this does happen. Now, the Guardians have assured me they're not going to allow this to happen, because if it was just allowed to go its course, it would wipe out our species. The planet would survive, but not many living things on it would. There are too many things at stake with our evolutionary development and what the Guardians would like to see us grow into for them to allow it to happen. So they have intervened right around the time of the harmonic convergence, and I believe that was in, who was that?
1987.
87, yeah. In 87, there was enough people that came together in peace that showed the Guardians that this species is worth intervening for. There were enough of us concerned about healing and about changing things to be in harmony with the universe, so they intervened. What they have created is a situation, they've explained to me a situation that we're in. Not only do we have these Earth changes facing us if we don't shift the planetary rate to a little higher level, there's also something that's happening in our future in this probability. So we're in a time continuum right now. Okay, we're circling here, let's say. In the year 2976, in this time continuum, because of the manipulations that are taking place now by the intruder-visitor forces, the planet implodes. And what happens when a planet implodes is not only the fact that everything on it gets killed biologically, but its Kelon codes, the Kelon codes of its consciousness, get ripped apart and fragmented back down to the first dimension, where they have to start re-evolving all over again. So the Guardians do not want to see us have to go through this, and it's not just about us anymore. Because if this planet implodes, it's going to take a number of other planetary systems with it, and it's going to rip a hole in the fabric of the time matrix, which is going to be like a vortex that sucks other things down into it. This has to be stopped. And they have a couple of options. They need to stop the intruders from doing this. They can't directly intervene and, with us not knowing anything, just go have this big war with the intruders out there and we won't even see it. It won't work that way. The portals are too sensitive on this planet right now. If they started to try to control the intruders, what the intruders would do is retaliate. They wouldn't win, but they could blow the planet up right now in the process. So the Guardians will not intervene by force, but they can intervene by educating us and by infusing the planetary grid with more energy. What's taking place with the intruder agendas right now is, because of the time cycles that we're in, they have until the year 2012 to get control over the portal system on this planet. If they don't do it by then, they're not going to have the opportunity to do it, because that's when we go into the phase where we cross through our double, and it speeds up our planet enough where the intruders won't be able to manipulate anymore. They don't have that range of frequency manipulation. So right now, between now and 2012, the intruders are trying to set up a couple of agendas here. Their first area of interest is in getting us under control on a mass level without us knowing it. Basically, they're setting up what's called a frequency fence. A frequency fence is created through certain types of electromagnetic pulses that are run through the physical stone of the planet and also run as a phantom trace along known electrical lines. They would like to use these things, and they have studied for about, for maybe 30 years trying to figure out exactly what frequencies to use in order to harness our perceptions. They have to know where our crystal bodies function. They have to know what frequencies our neurological structure is picking up on in order to know where to block. And that's what they're trying to do right now, because if they can get us under frequency fence control, they can carry on whatever they're doing, and we'll be clueless. Once we're under a frequency fence, they can project what's called a holographic insert. It's like a 5-sensory hologram. This could be a holographic insert, and we wouldn't know the difference if we were under a frequency fence.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a whole global population very easy to control. You can make them see, think, feel, or whatever, anything you want to. And that's one of the things the intruders are trying to do. The Guardians, of course, are having their counter strategy. You know, this cannot be allowed to happen, because if it does, we have a problem when we pass through our double, because the grid vibrates too low, because the frequency fence hampers the resonance rate or the frequency rate of the planet, not just the people. And there will be earth changes and all those kind of things. And it will also keep us in the time continuum where we hit that 2976 implosion. So the Guardians have to get us out of this time continuum now, before 2012. They've created something called the bridge zone. It's an artificial time continuum. And it's time continuums, you can look at them as bands of frequency, really. Like frequency waves, if you want to just conceptualize it that way. Waves of frequency, and they go in spirals. So we're spiraling here in this one. They're creating another one here, and we need to make the leap up into here. Literally, the energetic grid of the planet will start to vibrate up to this one instead of down here. We will not see the reality down here as long as we make this shift to the grid zone. So we're in the process now of learning the energy techniques and how they apply to our bodies, so we can start to make differences in our bodies. We can, A, shift ourselves out of the range of the frequency fence transmissions. Then we become immune, and they can't mess with us. It's instant protection. Once you start bringing in your soul level identities, your D4, 5, and 6 identity, those frequencies are too high, and the frequency fence will not work on people who are embodying those frequencies. So that's the first thing for personal safety, is learning how to use the energy fields to block this attempt at manipulation. Secondarily, the people that become aware of their energy systems and of the Earth's energy systems will be asked by the Guardians to help do something called keying portals. All right? Just like we have a chakra system, the planet has a chakra system too. And just like our chakras can be out of balance and not functioning properly, so can the planets. What the Guardians want us to do, once we learn how to balance our own energy systems, is to send energy into these portal areas on the planet and key them to a higher frequency out of the range of the intruder manipulation frequencies. So right now, there's this unseen battle for frequency for the portals going on between the intruder groups and the Guardian groups. And the Guardians are asking us to help, once we become aware of our own systems, to help with this project. We can help them seal the portals to a higher frequency into the frequencies that would be the same pattern as those of the bridge zone time cycle, and out of the one where we hit the implosion. And so as we're learning these things, it's not just something fun to play with your energy and maybe you can speed up your own evolution. There are planetary stakes here at this point, because it's a multi-level drama. It's not just that we're at a certain sensitive point in our time continuum. It's not just that there's intruder manipulation. It's all of these things put into one big picture all happening at the same time. And that's why there's so many people having contact with ETs and stuff at this point. The intruders are trying to manipulate, and the Guardians are trying to get people out of the manipulation and to educate them, because everybody out there, except for us down here, sees the big drama that's taking place. This doesn't happen every day on this planet or any other one. All right, so that's kind of like the framework within which we're learning these things about Kilanta and about our energy fields. And I could probably describe that. I would rather, if I was going to describe that to you or to anybody new that hasn't heard that part of it, I would rather do that with diagrams and charts and everything to show exactly what I'm talking about. It's hard to do without that, but that's basic rundown, in a quick format. So I hope that helps. Okay, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there any other questions? No? Okay. Let me look here for a second. I'm debating on whether to take a 5-minute break and get something to drink and catch my voice back, or should I start this?
I think you'll do that.
All right, what I'll do, I'm going to leave this up for visual purposes, and in about 5 minutes we'll come back and I'll go into the presentation on 15-dimensional matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be kind of like when you're in a hotel or something and they show the little map of the floor plan of the hotel and they put a little red X, you're here.
Yeah.
It gives you an orientation as to where you are within the rest of the structure, within the rest of the building. Well, the 15-dimensional matrix does the same thing in relation to where we are, in relation to what the cosmos is doing and where the rest of our identity is. So that we're going to go into that in about 5 minutes. And I hope that'll help. That helped me a lot when they gave me this information. So I'm hoping this will be, something that you can really use to plug into.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can we take a break?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll take a break.
All right, for the second half of my presentation, I would like to get into some more technical information. First thing I'd like to start with is to give a basic orientation as to where we are in relation to the cosmic structure and the universe and all of that. The Guardian Alliance taught me this format, and it helped me conceptualize what's going on very well. I was very pleased with the format that they gave me for explaining this. Now, they call them a 15-dimensional matrix. All right, a 15-dimensional matrix is basically a set of 15 stacked dimensions. Now, dimensions are composed of frequencies. All right, fields of frequency. Within frequencies, there are certain Keelan codes and Partakai grids. So frequencies are built up by Partakai grids and Keelan codes, and they form frequencies, and then the frequencies form the different levels of dimensional bands. We're in a system that has 15 dimensional bands, and they call that the one from 1 through 15, a 15-dimensional scale. All right, we're focused, our consciousness right now is focused here in the third dimensional frequency bands. And we're actually composed of the Keelan codes of the first, second, and third dimensions. The first dimension would give us our subatomic structure and the particles that we're made of. The second would give us what's called the emotional body, which is actually a portion of our identity that is connected to the more complex molecular structures that form the natural elements of the planet. It's our connection to the planetary field. And the third dimension is what you could call the mental body. Now, we see our physical body, but from the higher levels, if we were focused up in here, we could also see our emotional body and our mental bodies. They are composed of Partakai grids. They are composed of, they would look like little crystalline structures of energy if we were to be able to see them. So right now, we're evolving in through here in our 15-dimensional scale. At the center of a 15-dimensional matrix is something, it's at the 8th dimension. It's called a metagalactic core. This is way out in space someplace, and it connects our 15-dimensional structure into larger energy structures that the cosmos is composed of. So that's our connection to the expanded cosmic structure, not just the universe that we're in. They define universes as smaller than cosmos. So we have a universe here that's created through the 15-dimensional scale. And then we have a cosmic structure that's even larger than that, and the universe is a part of it. All right. With one 15-dimensional scale, there is actually a double scale, which runs in a counter rotation. They call it a counter rotation. It basically means if the particles in this universe are flashing on, these will be flashing off, and vice versa. Okay, one spiral, all right, these are spirals of energy that form the dimensions. In this one, which we are in, it's called the Particum particle universe. Now, as we discussed in the last class, Particum particles are the lower vibrating particles that have about a quarter of the thrust, the electrotonal thrust or force of their twin particles, which are the Partakai particles. Our particles and our consciousness takes place over here in the Particum universe. We have a parallel universe and a parallel that exists in the counter-rotating spiral. And they would be our antiparticle selves and our antiparticle planet. So you have two 15-dimensional matrices, or 15-dimensional scales running through each other, and they're actually transposed. They run through each other literally. It's not like one's over here and one's over there. These are all taking place in the same space, but they're on different frequency bands. You could kind of look at it like with radio or TV stations. You know, certain channels come in on one band and you change the channel and you're on another band and you get a different picture or a different radio station. Well, they're all taking place in the same space, but they're running on different frequency patterns and different patterns of particle pulsation, but they are intermeshed. Now, both of them, if we'll look at how the Particum universe and the Particay universe interact with each other when they are transposed, there are correspondences between the dimensions, right? They both meet at the middle, at the metagalactic core. They're linked there. And our dimension 1 has the dimension 15 from the Particay universe flowing through it. So there are dimensional correspondences between our 15-dimensional scale and that of our antiparticle. This becomes important when we start to understand our relationship to our double. We are energetically linked to our double, and our evolutionary process is really the process of integrating our biology and our consciousness with our double, which takes us out of biology eventually. And sometimes this takes thousands of years. It's not something, well, I can do this for a week, it'll happen at the end of the week. It's not that fast. But anyway, this is a basic orientation. We are living in a structure of 15 dimensions with metagalactic core at the center, and our antiparticle selves are running through on a counter rotation. Our spiral of energy is running, it's a particum universe, and particums draw in energy. So it is a drawing in spiral, it's a contracting spiral. It's pulling energy out of the time matrix, and they call this part of the time matrix, and into the central source. Whereas the antiparticle universe has the opposite spiral rotation. It would go clockwise, and it projects energy into the matrix. So we're basically on the moving out spiral, which is good on a larger planetary scale. Our planet is going through its evolutionary cycles right now, and it's moving back into source. And you could look at it as the process of being born would be spiraling outward on the antiparticle scale, and then when you're going back to source to return, you would be spiraling back in. We're on that spiraling back in spiral in our particum universe. And the dimensional correspondences are there. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think I covered everything I've written here. Yeah. Okay, this was a little thing they mentioned to me today that I'm just going to throw in here. It's not that important to know, but okay, where they are linked at the metagalactic core, where the two universes are energetically linked. Okay, our particum universal core exists as a black hole, okay, a drawing in center, that exists at the center of a central sun in the Particay universe. Now, I'm not going to go into heavily because I don't understand it all yet, what the Guardians have been explaining to me as every sun has at its core a black hole that allows the exchange of energy between 15-dimensional matrices or between even smaller ones. If you have suns down here, it allows for exchange of energy between the dimensional bands and then on a larger scale. But basically, we are linked. We represent the black hole. Our whole universe is taking place within this black hole that exists at the center of a huge central core sun in the Particay universe. So it's a very intimate relationship that's taking place here between our system and the Particay system. Now, that was one 15-dimensional matrix that we were a part of. Okay. There are actually, in the cosmic structure, 6 of those matrices. Each one of these here would represent one 15-dimensional matrix with its 2 counter-rotating 15-dimensional scales. Okay? We're over here in this arm of it, and our evolution is taking place in here. These outer circles here, which are the 15-dimensional matrices, when they're viewed collectively, they're called the time matrix. They are where dimensionalized reality and perception of time and individuation of consciousness takes place. When you evolve, before we get into when we evolve, when we enter the 15-dimensional matrices, we come from a central source, and we are in a state of consciousness that is what, in spiritual terms, would be considered at one-ment with our Creator, whatever you want to call that Creator. We are projected outward as electrotonal energy. Energy identity. Energy is aware, and we start as pure energy. We're projected into one of the 15-dimensional matrices, and then we go through our process of expanding into the dimensions, and then we have to pull ourselves back out of it again and spiral back up into the source. That's the process of spiritual evolution. So this kind of gives you a little bit of a map as to where we are. We're in
one of these over here, one of these 15-dimensional matrices, and after we finish our evolution through here, we will begin our evolution back to source. And there's a sequence to these, which I'm not going to go into because it's kind of technical and I don't have enough diagrams for it. But after we evolve through this spiral, we end up over here, and then evolve through this one, and then this one, and this one, and then eventually we end up in these two. These 2 points here, these 2 green dots, are cosmic cores, just like we had metagalactic cores. Well, these are cores to the cosmos, and there's only 2 of them. We evolve through these spirals, too, and then eventually end up back in the central source. Now, the Guardian Alliance chooses to use the word unici for that central source. It is a source of energy, emanation, out of which everything, all the matrices spring, and nothing takes place outside of those matrices. Everything is contained within this structure. It's also the identity, the original collective identity that religious concepts have tried to explain as God. So it's energy, identity, and it is a central source that we have all come out of and to which we will all evolve back into. And as we evolve and undergo our experiential realities within the dimensional matrices, we actually add to the data banks of that central source. You could look at it as we expand God, and God expands us. And it's a relationship that spirituality helps to explain better than the physics can explain. But it's important to realize that both spiritual and scientific realities plug into each other through this structure. All right. It may be difficult to explain how our particles first fragment down and we become conscious beings and evolve through dimension 1 and all the way up to the 15-dimensional matrix, and we're somewhere in there. We're in D3 right now, and how that, how we relate back into the unici or the source. In energy terms, it is a little difficult to follow that, but in spiritual terms, it's not that hard to understand, and that's why most of it's been given to us in spiritual terms throughout our development here on the planet. So we would understand that, yes, there is a central source. You can call it God. We've been taught to call it God in our civilizations. Okay, and yes, we are evolving to return home. That's where that concept comes from. And really, the dynamics that are involved are energy dynamics, where because of the way particle units behave, where they undergo fission, fusion, and replication, they expand and then they contract. It's a literal energy pulse, electromagnetic energy pulse, that is created, that propels consciousness into the 15-dimensional matrices, then reassembles it and pulls it back out and back into the source. And it is perpetual. People wonder where the universe started and where it's going to end. There was no beginning point. It always has been. And energy always has been. And energy is consciousness. And it is in perpetual motion through these structures. There are dynamics of energy balance that take place between them. When one spiral is contracting, the other is throwing energy outward, is expanding. So there's a constant flow of energy and consciousness between the matrices and between the dimensions within the matrices. It is a perpetual motion universe that we are a part of. We are eternal, and we will always be eternal. We will change form. We will expand our concept of identity. Right now we know ourselves as this person. As we become aware of our incarnations, we know ourselves as them too. As you evolve into the higher dimensions, you will know yourself as forms of consciousness we can't even fathom from this stage. But your body will die, and it just goes back into the substance of the unified field to be reassembled and used for other evolution, but your consciousness continues. And it continues on the journey through the matrices up until it gets back into the unici, at which point it's a level of cognition of being all. You know yourself as the cosmos. And it's a level that you really can't translate into human symbolism or human words or even human emotional concepts. It's beyond that. But there is an energetic structure that it's kind of interesting because there are some physicists out in Washington State that are interested in some of this material. They feel that it plugs very much into the unified field theory that they have been working on themselves. So they're understanding the scientific basis for this. There is a scientific basis that gets into energy and small particle behavior and antiparticles and how they relate to each other. That's all a part of this process. But the most important part is for us as individuals to just understand what we're connected to. We find ourselves down here on Earth, and we haven't a clue. Did we come out of apes? Where did we come from? Did a Big Bang just accidentally make us all happen? We've lost touch with the structure of the cosmos, and because of that, we've lost touch with our history and our purpose here as beings. And as we start to understand the structure of the cosmos, and yes, there is an order to it, and yes, there is a purpose behind it, you start to understand your personal purpose within the whole. And I know for me, that was very, very transformative when I started to understand myself as a unit of consciousness within this collective of consciousness. We're never alone, and our lives are never purposeless, but sometimes we forget what the purposes are. So this is a basic orientation as to where we are residing and what we are connected to. All right. These, again, would represent the time matrix. And then when you spiral up out of those, when you leave your own 15-dimensional matrix through the 8th dimension, you've evolved through up all the 15, and you go back in and through the metagalactic core and start entering into these spirals of energy and consciousness. This is called the energy matrix. It doesn't have time in any format at all. You don't experience time there. It's a state, it's a level of cognition, it's entity awareness. That's where the ultra-terrestrials reside. Some people call them ultra-terrestrials. They're really entities. The Guardian Alliance calls them geomantic entities because they are composed of extremely complicated geometrical formations of units of particle and consciousness. Now, particle are units of consciousness. They are electrotonal energy identity. So geomantic entities have very, very intricate particle patterns, and they are aware. They're a level of awareness that we originally came out of and that we will go back into as we evolve. It's a step in our own development as beings. So we will move from the time matrix to our evolution there, and then we'll move into the energy matrix and evolve there on the entity level, which is a different process altogether. You can't even describe it. I have a little bit of an intuitive feeling. They've showed me some things experientially. I can't even translate them into words to try to explain what the energy matrix is like to be there. But what we need to worry about here is our own little 15-dimensional matrix and what we're up to in it. What does it mean to evolve in a 15-dimensional matrix? It means some very specific things, and I'll try to get into that now. Oh boy. I put a lot of notes on this one.
Did you just do this today?
Yeah, 4 o'clock I started this. They didn't let me know how they wanted me to do the presentation until 4 o'clock, and I had to be over here, by like 7. Okay. This is called morphinogenic fields in one 15-dimensional scale. All right, what we're dealing with in the diagram here is just the one 15-dimensional scale within one 15-dimensional matrix. Remember, there's 2 15-dimensional scales, one counter-rotating. We're only dealing with one right now, and we'll deal with the particum universe because that's the one we're in. Okay, now we have the dimensions running. Now, if you'll notice, I want to go back here real quick. I'll do it this way. I have it here. I don't know if you can see it. It's little. This is the actual layout of how the dimensions would be stacked. They're actually all in one place, but if you expanded it, they would run this way. It has dimension 1, 2, 3, then 12, 11, 10, then 7, 8, 9, 6, 5, 4, and 13, 14, 15. It's not, there's a few turns in there. And if you would picture this in the way energy moves, they would represent areas where the energy reversed direction and flipped. Okay, there's energy movement involved here. It's not just a flat structure that hangs there in the universe like that and everything takes place in it. It's a moving structure. So there, every time, instead of running like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which would be easier, there's actually 1, 2, 3. You hit a polarization band, it flips and twists, and 4, 5, 6 ends up here. So this is the real layout of the numbering of the dimensions, but it's not important when you're just trying to understand how they basically relate to each other. That gets into the more heavy physics stuff that even they haven't even taught me all of yet. So we're going to number them the easy way for now, just 1 through 15 running upward. You still can get the same content, you just don't, ignore the flip right now. We don't even need to know that. Okay, let me see. Here I'm going to talk about morphogenetic fields. Now, a morphogenetic field can be looked at as an energy field that comes first and holds the pattern for forms or particles or things that will be built on particles. Every particle has a morphogenetic field, and every particum particle that we're composed of here, its morphogenetic field is the original particle unit that it came out of. And everybody else knows this, but the new people don't, probably because they haven't gotten into A part of chi unit is an electrotonal unit of energy identity that comes out from the central source, enters the 15-dimensional matrix, and then it polarizes into a part of K and a part of count, the particle and the antiparticle. Okay, so that original part of chi pattern represents the morphogenetic field for both the particle and the antiparticle. Now, we're down here from dimension 7 through 1 in the particum universe. The structures, identities, and biologies, and all those things in these dimensions are created of particum particles. The morphogenetic field, the whole pattern of those particles, what they came out of, are held in the dimensions up here, okay, in dimensions 9 through 15. The physical, all right, in D1 is your physical body, your subatomic particles, your subatomic particle makeup. The morphogenetic pattern for that is up in D15. You see the dimensional correspondences here? If you trace the circle around, D2 corresponds with D14, 3 with 13. That means the emotion, or if you're trying to transmute the particum particles in your emotional body, let's say, you would need to bring in the frequencies of D14, where that morphogenetic field is. So basically, we do have morphogenetic fields that hold our form together and give us the basic structure of our identity and our evolutionary path through time. And they are located in specific places. You know, the different parts of our own identity, you know, our body would be in D15, emotional body D14. There are these correspondences, and that's important in understanding how the chakra system works and understanding what frequency, what it means to bring in frequency from the morph field and what that's going to do to our particles here. Okay, let's see. Now, in general, in the 15-dimensional scale, consciousness that resides in dimension 7 through 1, or 1 through 7, they have biology, all right? They have a physical form. They have substance. In dimensions 1, 2, and 3, they are the most dense matter particles. That's where you'll get your physical bodies, you know, hard, solid matter, that kind of thing. In the dimensions 4 through 6, they still have bodies there. All right, they still have biologies, but they are of a less dense structure of matter. All right, they are more, some people call them etheric. And they're still composed of particum in our universe, but they have more of their particles have been transmuted into the morphogenetic field already. They have less dense matter particles, so they take place up, they have their identity and their reality up in here. A lot of our ET visitations are coming from here. All right, they still have biology, and they can do things with matter that we never imagined is possible because they understand the laws involved with this. This area down here, D1, 2, 3, where we're in, is called the first harmonic universe. It's a part of the larger 15-dimensional universe that we're involved in. That's the first harmonic. This they call the second harmonic, and it's also where your soul identity resides. All right, this here is the third harmonic, D7, 8, and 9, and that's what connects you directly to the metagalactic core. That's your pathway home, is, you know, evolving through this until you hit that level. Once you evolve up into where your consciousness is stationed in the 7th dimension, you go into pre-matter form, where you don't have a biology. Then there's a process going on here where you're actually merging with your double. You transmute back into pure consciousness, and then you finish evolving, bringing in the rest of the morphogenetic pattern until eventually you know your whole identity as the 15-dimensional matrix and its unified field. You go from being an individuated consciousness, like we are here, to being a soul consciousness, aware of its 144 relatives that it actually is as a soul and an oversoul, into planetary consciousness, where you know yourself as a planet, and then into galactic consciousnness, until your consciousness has embodied the entire frequency pattern of the 15-dimensional matrix. And it's hard to conceptualize this from our perspective, because we're still down here in individuated consciousness, and we think, you know, everything is divided up into single pieces. It isn't. We actually grow and expand until we become what they call a rishi. A rishi would look like a big ball of light if we saw one, but it would be so big that you couldn't see it on planet Earth because it would engulf planet Earth if it came here. All right. A rishi is composed, now we're all composed of a crystal body, a chelon structure. Okay, we have crystal bodies that are made of the chelons from D1, 2, and 3. All right. The rishi is composed of chelons from 1 through 15. It is an awesome form of consciousness, and it does have a chelon code body. All right, so this is our evolutionary process, basically. We work from what we call incarnates, or tarn. They call them tarn. That's their word for it, the guardian lines. They're the dense matter bodies. We build up from simple forms. We start as subatomic particles, and then we move up into more elaborate life forms of, like, elemental life forms. We become part of the earth. We may have 2,000 years of evolution as crystals or something in the earth, as part of the earth. Then, as we're evolving, we are building more frequency into our consciousness, into our particule grids. It will take us, as we build more, it takes us to the next level of frequency. In D3, when we build the D3 frequencies into our particule grids, we begin to have the individuated consciousness of being separate from the earth and walking around on it, rather than just being a part of it and having the collective consciousness. When we start evolving up into here, which is right here is where our species is in its evolutionary imprint, many of us are still stuck down here, but many of us are starting to make the leap up into D4. That means they're starting to bring in the frequencies and the Kelon codes of the astral body, the first level of the soul identity. They're starting to bring that into their conscious identity here, into their DNA, and into their conscious awareness. That's the next phase we have to work on, is to start bringing, because you progressively, you can't, like, if you're a D2, you can't all of a sudden decide you're going to be a D6. This is a process of building frequency and building Kelon codes, and each dimension has a certain number of Kelon codes.